Chapter 17, Den of Betrayal. Korn enters Hoshido and discovers that a Nohrian ally has been under attack for days. Korn rushes to assist their besieged troops.
Welcome. We have been waiting for you.
Huh?
Certainly.
Huh? Oh. I see.
Sorry, but... Here we are.
Thank you.
Of course not.
Reporting. Oh! It won't happen again.
What?
Well...
Certainly.
Huh? Understood.
We are forever in your debt.
No need to worry.
Thank you. Watch out! Huh? Saizo.
Fate, I guess.
Indeed. Back off! No.
What?
Huh? What? Well. Listen. Hey.
Of course not.
Saizo. Well... yeah. Huh? Well. How very amusing. What?
This cave is filled to the brim with ninjas who not only debuff your stats with their shurikens, but also inflict massive damage outside of battle. They all have Poison Strike, and the Master Ninjas have Grisly Wound. The counterplay is to kill these enemies in a single round of combat each. If you can do that, then Poison Strike and Grisly Wound won't work. Without those extra sources of damage, the enemies are pretty weak. But how do you kill ninjas en masse on enemy phase? You first have to be able to counterattack them. Hand axes, javelins, and similar weapons can do that, but they're inaccurate and they can't follow up. You need a whopping 48 attack to one-shot the Master Ninjas after a Steel Shuriken debuff. In a tag team, it only takes about 36 attack on both units, but that's still a pretty high bar, especially if you want accurate dual strikes against enemies with upwards of 40 avoid. You might be tempted to fight back using a dagger wielder of your own. That's certainly possible, but the 4 dagger classes are frail, and daggers have very low might, so your Master Ninja or Mechanist, or Butler or Maid, will probably require a lot of support. They not only need a ton of speed, 29 to double the Master Ninjas or 33 if debuffed by a Silver Shuriken, but also a lot of strength and defense. The best counter to the Shuriken is the bow. Bows are strong, they're accurate, and importantly, they have weapon triangle advantage over shurikens, negating their weapon rank bonuses. As a result, the unpromoted ninjas lose 2 attack, the mechanists lose 3, and the master ninjas lose 4 when fighting a bow user. Bows don't work at melee range, but on this stage, that's no problem at all. There is an extensive network of walls that, in many places, are just 1 tile wide. As long as you can keep your bow wielder behind one of those walls, the enemies will be forced to attack at range 2. The dragon veins on this map facilitate that by allowing you to erect new walls on demand, and then to take them down once you're done. In addition to using the literal walls, you also have the option to create a figurative one by deploying a bulky unit with a 1-2 range weapon. With a javelin, it takes 29 defense to render yourself completely immune to all of the Master Ninjas. Wielding a hand axe or bolt axe, you only need 25, and if you're not facing any silver shurikens, as little as 22 will do. As long as your unit meets those benchmarks and has the ability to counterattack, the ninjas and Master Ninjas will completely ignore them. plug that unit into a choke point ahead of your bowman to rack up a lot of easy kills. With that setup, you don't even have to worry about managing the dragon veins, so that's the method I normally prefer. Camilla will act as our portable wall, though I should point out that Selena can also do the job in a pinch, and our principal bow user will be Mozu. If we didn't already have a suitable unit for the job, we can also use our newest recruit, Shura. If you choose to spare him, Shura joins the army as a level 2 adventurer. Adventurer definitely isn't his best class for combat purposes, but it gives him lockpicking abilities, boosted movement, modest staff utility, and reasonably good combat potential, all in one convenient package. He also has a built-in debuff function thanks to his personal skill, Highwayman, but the applications for that are rather limited. Like Gunter, Shura is a Khorne sexual, but his support list is even more restricted than Gunter's because Shura doesn't have any friends. So unless you pick female Khorne and marry him, Shura's 3 innate class trees are all he gets. Fortunately, the selection is pretty good. The standout is the ninja tree, which allows Shura to put his excellent base stats to better use by giving him access to unrestricted 1-2 range weapons. It's a great idea on paper, especially considering that Shura keeps movement +1, and he can feasibly earn Lucky 7 at level 5 before making the switch. In practice, however, the ninja path isn't quite as amazing as it looks. The main things that Shura can achieve as a ninja in the next few chapters are also perfectly doable by Kaze, who doesn't cost a heart seal, tends to be faster and more resistant after promotion, and can make up for a lot of his strength and defense deficits with his superior dagger rank and his greater access to support bonuses. If Shura can't establish a meaningful lead over Kaze immediately, that's not a great sign. In the long term, his growths are going to let him down. You can certainly make Ninja Shura work regardless, but we're talking about giving him a limited resource to make a slightly souped up version of Kaze, whose combat performance fades later in the game. There are other characters out there who can take that same resource to become absolute world beaters. I really do wish that Shura's almost unique combination of outlaw and ninja meant something more than it does. A mechanist who can have up to 9 movement without boots sounds like a lot of fun, but the map design in Conquest just doesn't support it. From chapter 19 all the way to chapter 24, if you want to get around fast, you mostly have to fly. In the end, I think Shura is merely pretty good. He always has a reasonable amount of utility, compressing the roles of Lock Touch unit and healer, while also offering a movement bonus when needed by pairing up. Depending on what you've done in your run, he might also be your best available bow or dagger unit, and in those cases, he's definitely worth using. His only failing is that all the different things he can do don't quite cohere into anything that's truly elite. Since he's been part of this conversation, let's look at Kaze. It's time for him to promote, and he has an interesting choice to make. Mechanist gives him extra movement, it patches up his weakest stats, and it also gives him bow access. If we needed Kaze to be our juggernaut on this stage, then Mechanist would make a lot of sense. On the other hand, Master Ninja accentuates the things that Kaze is already good at, and it retains the useful pair-up bonuses in speed and movement from the Ninja class. Mechanist trades those bonuses for a smattering of strength, defense, and resistance. It's the only mounted class that does not boost movement as a pair-up partner. When you have a full team at your disposal, it's almost always better to specialize. You can choose which characters do what, so the ability to perform 1 or 2 jobs really well is more useful than being decent at several jobs. We'd rather Kaze be even better at fighting mages than be slightly bulkier on the physical side, but still quite frail. And we'd rather use Kaze to boost the movement of our flyers, who are already our most mobile units, than give him 1 more movement on the ground. Silas also has to promote. For him, the right choice is a lot more ambiguous. We're getting into the phase where Cavaliers simply aren't very good no matter which flavor you pick. Their best combat prospects tend to be using throwables or effective weaponry, and for those purposes, Great Knight is clearly superior. But Paladin has higher movement, which is kind of nice for shelter utility if nothing else, and it also gets a better skill at level 5. As soon as he marries Camilla, Silas will escape the Cavalier tree and become a Wyvern Lord. So the question is this: should we choose Great Knight, allowing Silas to earn some axe rank before then? Or should we opt for Paladin to grab Defender? In the context of this challenge, I think Paladin is better. We won't be able to use Silas as a Wyvern Lord for long, so his axe rank won't matter much. The more pressing concern is that we have to put Silas in the right positions to train and to build his support ranks on his next 2 missions. In those specific circumstances, Paladin's higher speed and movement will help us more than Great Knight's raw power and toughness can. Defender is the cherry on top. Ever since Chapter 11, we've been deploying Kaze, Silas, Camilla, and Baruka together, or not at all, with only one exception in Chapter 14. That's because they're all bound together in a square. Kaze wants to befriend Silas, who wants to marry Camilla, who wants to befriend Baruka, who wants to marry Kaze. But after this mission, that square will start to break up. Camilla and Baruka will unlock their A support. After that, those four will be in a similar situation as Selena, Laszlo, Keaton, and Mozu, two partnerships linked by one friendship. The faster we break these chains, the faster we can make space on the active duty roster for other units. The 6 remaining deployment slots mostly fill themselves based on the relationship nexus that is Corrin. He has to befriend Shura by rule, and this is a good time to start. Percy friendship is also mandatory and highly desirable. With Percy, we're bringing Effie. If you have to train an underleveled archer with a lot of strength, this is the place to do it. Jakob offers Corrin the fastest access to Troubadour. He's also supposed to marry Azura, who on this mission is a crucial resource. Between Azura, Laszlo, and speed tonics, we can arbitrarily grant at least 6 speed to any unit we want, other than Azura and Laszlo themselves. Adding in parrot bonuses and meals, it's pretty easy to reach the key speed benchmarks. The last thing to cover before we begin is our ally, Saizo. He has really good stats, and he's also immune to poison damage and debuffs. If you heal him every once in a while, you can lean on him to clear a lot of the enemies as he makes his way to the boss. But we don't want him to steal our experience, and we don't want him to get killed, or else we'll lose out on a speed wing. So the main thing that we're going to do with the Dragon Veins is to trap him here, in the only room on the map where that's possible. All the exits are synced up, either they're both open, as they are now, or they're both closed. The caltrop spaces, shown in purple on the minimap, don't affect the enemies because they all have lock touch. We can remove them ourselves using Shura or Kaze. As that blurb indicated, Saizo will also help clear the traps. We'll start with the closest patch, the one to our right, but that's a dead end right now. The path out of there is blocked and will remain blocked unless we use a Dragon Vein. If we don't, then Saizo will have to double back and go north. Our goal in these first few turns is to get way ahead of Saizo, clearing out all the enemies in the western and central parts of the stage so that we can shepherd him into his pen without any trouble. To do that quickly, we'll need Azura to sing several times.
Here I am.
I'm here for you. Let's win this one, all right? How shall we proceed?
Everything will be fine. Just my luck.
Let's see how this
You can
goes.
see that Camilla takes 0 damage from the unpromoted ninjas. That's true even without the defense bonus that Mozu is giving her, so they can safely separate. The Master Ninja can't hurt her either because he only has a steel shuriken, not a silver. But even if she didn't have that much defense, Camilla actually deals enough damage to be lethal using Mozu's dual strike. Mozu likewise can kill using Keaton's support, but she has less defense than Camilla does, so the enemies will always target her. In this arrangement, Mozu's speed stat doesn't matter at all. The only real concern right now is strength, an area where Camilla's personal skill gives Mozu a big assist. Percy drops Corrin in range of the other Master Ninja, the one who does have a silver shuriken. That guy won't kill Corrin, but he will deal a lot of damage. Corrin can fight back using his Fire Tome, but that's not going to be terribly effective. It only gives him 23 attack, and the Master Ninja has really good resistance. But that's not the point. What we really want to achieve here is to get Corrin wounded. That'll activate Vow of Friendship, making Silas a lot stronger. Vow of Friendship tends to be more and more of a burden as you go through the game, assuming you want to use Corrin as a combat unit. But for now, it works fine. Corrin's not very well equipped to fight on this map anyway, so keeping him low on HP and away from the action doesn't carry much of an opportunity cost.
I won't let you down. Is there a plan?
The Shrine Maiden Silence Rod doesn't bother us. In Conquest, it is possible to acquire the Calamity Gate, a scroll that reverses the weapon triangle and is therefore good against shurikens. Someone like Odin or Leo can use that very effectively here, but for them, getting silenced is obviously a lot more troublesome.
We can take these goons!
I guess I'll save your tail. Take this!
You're strong.
Go, go, go! I got this!
Thanks.
Our objective on turn 2 is to clear out the enemies in the Shrine Maiden's room. That'll give us total dominance over the center of the map. The trouble is that this crowd includes more than just ninjas. It also has a pair of samurai, one carrying an axe splitter with his steel katana and the other having quick draw. They will complicate things. We also have to deal with this master ninja.
Shall we kill
Camilla can take him out on her way to the center, but even though Percy has a bronze weapon equipped and he has weapon triangle advantage, his dual strike is not very accurate. That's one of the chief difficulties on this map. The master ninjas and sword masters have a lot of avoid, so much that even the most accurate weapons available can't always hit them. That's true even for Mozu with her bronze bow +2. She's only achieving perfect hit rates by virtue of having 3 people adjacent to her.
Not to worry.
Camilla's own accuracy isn't great either, but we're counting on her to hit several of these kinds of attacks. That's why we've given her skill and luck tonics. They're not strictly necessary, but they make this clear a lot more reliable. Keaton has to get out of the way so that Jakob can heal
I'll
Mozu.
kill you.
This will be enjoyable.
To fight the next group of ninjas, we will once again place Camilla in the choke point with Mozu behind her. Mozu pairs up with Camilla so that the two of them can travel together. Azura will sing to them.
Trust me.
Azura's song gives Camilla a boost. The 3 points of skill and luck are quite valuable to her because they translate into 6 points of hit. But Mozu also needs the buff from Inspiring Song, particularly the speed, because she can't afford to fight in a tag team anymore. Instead, she has to pair up, and she needs to reach the 29 speed benchmark. So instead of flying straight to her destination, Camilla only goes part way, and then she switches to set up a second song.
You're not alone. Let's go.
Mozu's still not ready to move in because she needs another buff from Laszlo. For him to get close enough to rally, Shura must first clear the caltrops. While he's at it, he can take Korn away from Azura. Before Laszlo does anything, Baruka drops Kaze in range of a Mechanist. No other enemies can attack him, but that Mechanist will pull in one of the Master Ninjas to support him, specifically the one with movement +1. With his full 7 movement, he's able to walk onto the nearby pillars. That works out really nicely because it gives us a chance to split the 2 Master Ninjas and deal with them separately.
I'll be strong for you.
Now Mozu has 25 speed. That's not enough, but she can go ahead and drop Camilla into position. It's critical that Mozu drops Camilla and not the other way around. I'll explain why in a minute. For now, we'll finish our setup by having Selena transfer Keaton to Mozu, giving her the last 4 points of speed she needs. I said earlier that Mozu can't tag team the ninjas here. One issue is that she and Keaton are weaker than they were on turn 1. Mozu has been debuffed by the steel shurikens, and Keaton's odd-shaped skill is inactive because the turn number is even. They're not strong enough to kill the master ninjas anymore, at least not without some additional costs. But the main problem is that if Mozu were unpaired, she'd be taking dual strikes from the samurai in every battle, and she would die pretty quickly. Speaking of those samurai, the axe splitter one can hurt Camilla pretty badly. That weapon has 7 might, which gets tripled to 21, so his attack power becomes 26, minus 2 for lower raw might compared to the steel katana, plus 14 for effectiveness, plus 1 for weapon triangle advantage, a total of 39. That's a hefty hit, 16 damage, but it's more than survivable. Luckily, the Axe Splitter is not equipped by default, and the AI isn't able to make a unit switch weapons without using up their turn in the process. It doesn't detect that there's any potential to kill Camilla by exploiting Axe Splitter dual strikes over and over again. Lastly, Percy carries Effie over by Mozu. Either of them can improve Mozu's accuracy, but it's better to place Percy next to her than Effie to avoid wasting support points. Fortunate Son also gives us some peace of mind, but it doesn't actually make a difference here. It's nice that the unpromoted ninjas attack first, since that ordering maximizes Mozu's earnings.
Sure, why not? Don't be a crybaby.
Wow, look at me.
You die on me, I'll kill you. Saving you. Don't be a crybaby.
Did I get stronger?
I want to see what happens. Saving you. You die on me, I'll kill you. Don't be a crybaby. Saving you.
At level 5, Mozu learns Profiteer. This skill is very similar to Keaton's personal skill, but instead of collecting food and gems, Profiteer generates gold bars. Each of those is worth 300 gold. That gives us an additional revenue stream. It's not at all necessary to win or even to finish this challenge, but I would like to do a lot of fun stuff with a second generation, more than would be possible using the normal sources of gold. One issue is that Profiteer is random. The user gets a luck % chance to find a gold bar with their first action on each turn. I do not want to get myself into a situation where I'm redoing my recordings just to get a certain number of gold bars. So what I've decided to do is to treat the skill as if it's deterministic. At the end of each map, I'll be computing the average number of gold bars I would have expected to earn, and I'll be keeping a running tally of that expected value for the rest of the run. Between missions, I'll edit my save to make the total number of gold bars I've collected match that figure as closely as possible.
I'll do my best. Me too.
You're so cute.
Anyway, Mozu's job is basically done now. She's killed a whole bunch of ninjas, enough to earn her key skill at level 5. If you're very familiar with this map, you might have noticed that something odd just happened. We've entered the central room, and when you do that, you're supposed to trigger a wave of reinforcements. A group of ninjas from the south, and some mechanists and automata from the northwest. That didn't happen because that reinforcement trigger is not technically based on the locations of your units. Instead, it depends on where they've completed their turn-ending actions. Mozu dropped Camilla into the trigger zone, but getting dropped is not an action. Camilla didn't do anything, Mozu did, and Mozu used the separate command from outside the zone. Nobody has acted from inside the zone yet, so the trigger didn't go off. By doing things the way we did, we've managed to delay the reinforcements by a turn. That gives us a bit more time to deal with the other enemies first.
Shall we kill them? I'll protect you.
Mozu has earned plenty of support points with Keaton by now, so she can give him up. For the rest of the chapter, Keaton will be working with Camilla, Selena, and especially Laszlo.
I'll play with you.
You saved me.
As it happens, Mozu has activated Profiteer at her first opportunity. This is turn 3, so she can do that up to 4 more times before the 7-turn time limit. With 18 luck, the expected total would be 9/10 of a gold bar. Profiteer can only trigger on a unit's first turn-ending action, so Azura cannot give Mozu a second chance on any given turn by singing to her, not even if Mozu fails the Profiteer roll the first time. Unfortunately, that also means the 3 extra luck from Inspiring Song can never help. Likewise, you can't do any shelter shenanigans to earn extra money either.
How you want to do this?
Shura will take on the Master Ninja across the wall. This guy is an attractive capture target for Niles. He can do a lot of the standard ninja tasks really well.
Are you okay? It was your time.
Shura's accuracy was pretty good there. Unfortunately, the debuff from the Steel Shuriken has dropped Shura's strength. He was dealing 18 damage per hit using his bronze bow. But against the next Master Ninja, he'll only deal 16, having lost 3 points from the debuff, but gaining 1 back in more favorable terrain. 16 times 2 doesn't quite kill, so we need to make him equip a stronger, less accurate weapon.
I'll support you.
Let's take him out!
Percy can use either dual strike, but all things considered, we'd rather give the experience to Baruka than Shura. She needs a lot more of it than he does.
Must I restrain myself?
Golly, thanks a bunch!
Shall we kill them?
We'd like for Camilla to take out this Swordmaster, but she's not fast enough to double him and she can't survive his counterattack. She needs more speed and more HP. Azura and Jakob can provide those things. Camilla just has to make a temporary retreat.
I'll take care of this.
We won't lose.
Be steadfast.
Not to worry.
The Duel Club makes it feasible for Camilla to fight Swordmasters, but they have so much raw void that even with Inspiring Song helping out, its accuracy is still very far from perfect. It doesn't come into its own as a counter to all sword units until you reach A rank in axes. The benefit from Weapon Triangle Advantage at C rank is only 10 hit. The Duel Club doubles that bonus to 20, which sounds very nice, but its base hit rate is awful. It's just 60, worse than a Steel Axe. Doubling the Weapon Triangle bonus only makes it as accurate as a neutral Bronze Axe. At A rank, however, the Duel Club would gain 30 hit from the Triangle Advantage instead of 20, on top of the passive 5-point hit bonuses that axes receive at C rank and B rank. So if Camilla had already achieved A rank in axes, her displayed accuracy here would have been 97%, not 82. If you use Camilla more liberally than we have, as you probably should, then it's not very hard for her to reach B rank. From there, I would strongly consider giving her the Arm Scroll from Chapter 13.
Aww.
Now Camilla's in range of one ninja. For the moment, we'd like to repel him, which we can do by making Camilla equip a hand axe again. We also want to separate Keaton from her so that he can act independently on her next turn. Laszlo can kill the Shrine Maiden using Keaton's Dual Strike.
Nice moves.
That leaves us with Baruka, Kaze, Silas, and Effie. Kaze can go ahead and clear the caltrops in the northwest, which would otherwise get in our way when we move to fight the reinforcements who are about to show up there. For their part, Silas and Effie together can help Azur earn some extra experience, moving her a little closer to the action up north in the process.
We can do this together. I believe it. Not a chance. Respect your elders.
The reinforcements are only slightly tardy. Effie would like to go kill one of these automata, but as you may have noticed, she has no weapons. Mozu can donate
Let
one.
you die.
I'll protect you.
Don't die on me.
I'll be your shield.
Stay sharp. What are you looking at?
I'll return the favor. Stand back, citizen!
This doesn't kill, but that's alright. We really want to give this kill to Baruka, and if Percy lunges, then Baruka can take it while also handing Kaze the Silas.
It's not over yet.
Looks like we have no choice.
Using fire, Baruka can allow Silas or Effie to deliver a dual strike. Effie's less accurate, but we'd rather have the experience go to her.
Strength is everything. Let me at him.
That one was mine.
Baruka did not lunge because we want Azura to sink for Effie from the north, thereby covering as much ground as possible. Once Effie gets out of the way, Jakob can do something similar with Shura, going past him before using his heal stat. Jakob can also use Mend, but Shura doesn't actually need full HP.
Let's go.
Shura won't be able to kill either Mechanist on enemy phase no matter which weapon he uses, unless he gets a crit, and we'd rather give that experience to other people anyway. His best bet is to stick with the bronze bow as he kills the third automaton. We didn't use Effie for this task because she needs to go over by Silas later, but she only has 5 movement to work with.
Let's go.
With Kaze's parrot bonus, Silas now has 9 movement.
Guard.
Also thanks to Kaze, he's not impeded by the caltrops, so he can ride all the way over to this next automaton.
Leave it to me. I'm glad you're safe. Now we can breathe easy.
The enemy movement order here is a little weird. The way it will work out is that one automaton will attack Silas first, one of the mechanists will hit him at 2 range, and then the second mechanist will attack at melee range. Over here, we can do even more player phase offense. Our first targets are these 3 ninjas to the southeast. We want to get rid of them before the reinforcements come through. Keaton can't reach them on his own, but he can get close enough to provide dual strikes. This is turn 4, so Odd Shaped is off. Fortunately, he can still use the Beast Stone. He doesn't have to resort to the less accurate Beast Rune. The Iron Axe might have weapon triangle advantage, but that's not nearly enough to overcome a 22-point advantage in base hit for the Bronze Lance +2.
You die on me, I'll kill you. Too slow.
I had it under control.
The only ninja that Laszlo can reach is the Master south of Selena, so we'd like to reserve that target for him. But Laszlo isn't strong enough to kill, not with Keaton and not with Selena either. However, if Camilla flies past Selena and kills the more distant ninja using Selena's dual strike, she will level up.
Alright, let's go! Whatever!
Thank you.
At level 5, Camilla learns Savage Blow, which makes all enemies within 2 spaces of her lose 20% HP after any combat she initiates. She learns it before the game resolves after battle effects, so it activates immediately. As a result, this ninja's HP is reduced by 6, weakening him just enough for Laszlo to kill now using Selena's dual strike.
Let's win this one, alright?
You won that round. I'll be strong for you. Stay sharp.
Whoa, thanks.
Show me what you've got. Don't scare me like that. We made it!
Shura is unable to counter the first Mechanist, but he's only exposed on one side, so the other Mechanist will have to fight him at 2
You
range.
okay? You'll be alright. Not a chance!
Conveniently, the timing works out such that Kaze blocks this attack, preventing the first Mechanist from reducing Silas's speed or defenses. The saws that the automata use also inflict debuffs, but only on strength and magic.
Don't scare me like that.
Silas can't hold out against the Mechanists on his own, so Percy and Effie will reinforce him.
We can take these goons!
Everything will be fine. This one's for you.
Neato!
Before Effie makes her move, Baruka can take up Percy's former position, where she can use Effie's dual strike again to weaken one of the 2 Mechanists by Shura. It's important that we maximize damage by using the hand axe, even though that will risk Baruka taking a crit. And Baruka should lunge too, to pull that enemy closer to the rest of the team.
I'll crush them! It's not over yet!
Next, Effie should kill this Mechanist after Silas damages
We
him.
have no choice.
This attack will fill Silas's guard gauge, so even though he'll be very low on HP, he should be perfectly safe.
Looks like we have no choice.
I'll be your shield!
Percy's dual strike deals exactly the right amount of damage to kill. But before we pull the trigger, it's worth checking for other, more reliable options. The Mechanist has an odd amount of defense, 17, but Percy's displayed attack is even, and the only modifier that will apply is from Quick Draw. That's worth 4 points, so it doesn't change the parity at all. Since dual strike damage is halved and it always rounds down, Percy can drop 1 point of attack without making his dual strike any weaker. Therefore, he can safely switch to his bronze axe, which is a lot more accurate.
You've got an ace in the hole! Thank you. Am I too strong?
With several of our recent moves, we've been opening up spaces where new attackers can join the fray. This time, Mozu can go where Effie was. She can kill by herself using the Blessed Lance, but if we make Azura equip a stronger weapon, she should be able to earn some combat experience with a lethal dual strike.
Here I go. We won't lose. I can do this.
But, Mozu, we didn't want you to do that.
That went well.
Luckily, Azura losing that experience shouldn't matter too much. We need to finish off this last Mechanist. We want to do that using Corrin, not Shura. Corrin gets more experience, and if he transfers Shura away to Baruka, then we can easily set up some opportunities for Azura to build support with Jakob. To pull this off, Corrin needs to use Baruka's dual strike. He can't afford to take a counterattack. Baruka only has 23 attack with the hand axe, but the steel axe +1 gives her 30 against the Mechanist's 17 defense. That's worth 6 damage, which is just enough.
Thank you. This is my chance.
We'd like to pick up the treasure here as soon as possible. To do that, Azura will sing to Baruka from the right, but not before she equips a weapon that won't accidentally crit. She has 20 HP, and the Brass Naginata gives her 7 defense, so she easily survives 1 attack from either automaton. They both have regular saws, not big saws, which have 5 more might.
We can do this. How shall we proceed?
Jakob will support Azura. Since Azura usually has better things to do than to sing for Jakob over and over, it's really helpful to find these opportunities for the two of them to fight together. Over in the southeast, we're not prepared to take on all 5 ninjas at once, but luckily, we don't have to. Instead, we're going to pick off the isolated Mechanist, and then on enemy phase we'll fight only the closest Master Ninja. We can attack the Mechanist from 3 locations, but we only have 2 ranged weapons to use, so we're really limited to 2 attacks, unless we do some kind of trade chain. 2 hits should be sufficient, 1 from Camilla and then 1 from Laszlo, with Selena supporting them both. To maximize Selena's damage, we'll have Keaton pair up with her, improving her strength by 4. The best position for Selena is directly on top of the Dragonbane, which is outside of the Master Ninja's attack range. Camilla can go south of her, even farther from the ninja.
Alright, let's go! What are you looking at?
Come on, smile.
Now Laszlo can kill the Mechanist using Selena's dual strike, and he can do likewise to the Master Ninja on enemy phase. He and Selena have their strength stats calibrated to do that exactly. The fact that they both have strong riposte is a big help. Laszlo will have 31 attack, and Selena will have 40, so together they should deal 19 plus 14 damage.
I will protect you.
Show me what you've got!
Thanks. Let's go. Unacceptable. Yes.
Selena's dual strike is not super reliable, but if she were to miss, that wouldn't actually be a problem. If we had to, Laszlo could finish off that Master Ninja on our next player phase.
Be careful. May I?
Jakob can defeat this automaton using Corrin's fire dual strike, so Corrin doesn't have to switch to a sword or his Dragonstone.
Let's go. Let me try. Much obliged.
Jakob has achieved B rank in daggers, and Corrin should now be 1 attack away from having D rank in tomes.
Let's go.
Is there a plan?
Jakob can attack this automaton too. By doing so, he gives Corrin another point of tome experience. That means Corrin has had a tiny bit of leeway in his quest to reach D rank. He would have succeeded even if we had dropped a point somewhere along the way. In the short term, the reason why D tomes matters is that it allows Corrin to use our forged Thunder Tome. That's nowhere near as powerful as the Levin sword, and it's not any more accurate either. However, it could prove very useful if, say, Corrin ever had to dodge some very powerful arrows. You might have balked at the idea of leaving Corrin exposed to attack with only 4 HP, but this automaton can't kill him. Corrin has 19 defense, plus 3 from Jakob's personal skill, but nothing from Gentilhomme, seeing as how Corrin is no longer female. From here, Shura can reach the next set of caltrops. it's best to remove them now. Saizo is about to enter his jail cell. The only unit of ours who has to get out of there is Azura. Once she does so on our next turn, we can seal him in forever.
I'll crush them! I'm here to help! What a workout.
I have faith in you.
After we activate a Dragon Vein, our path from this area toward the eastern part of the map will go through these protrusions and not through the northern passageways. While he waits, Silas could use some healing. Mozu can give it to him. Percy will have to carry Effie, so he shouldn't stray too far away from her.
We can take these goons!
Back in the southeast, we have to eliminate a couple of ninjas. Step 1 is for Laszlo to move here. If the Master Ninja who attacked him had survived, Laszlo could kill him now, but otherwise he can just wait.
Your back.
Selena will kill the closest ninja by transferring Keaton away and then using Laszlo's dual strike. She lunges so that she ends up closer to the choke point.
I'll be strong for you. How about a two-step?
I had it under control.
Let's see how this goes.
Camilla can kill the Master Ninja using her forged hand axe. This is why we gave her a strength tonic. Using Laszlo's dual strike, which is stronger than Selena's, Camilla beats the kill threshold by 1 point. We'll come back to that in a minute. For now, I just want to celebrate how amazing Camilla has been. She came into this chapter having only leveled up twice in the whole campaign, yet she is dominating. Mozu may have taken most of the glory at the beginning of this mission, but Camilla is the real hero.
You'll be all right.
Yet another victory. Well, how irksome.
Saizo is in position, but before we do anything with the Dragon Veins, we have to take care of business down south. Selena got weakened slightly, but the ninjas again refused to attack Camilla. Because of that, we can feed the last 3 kills to Selena and Laszlo, who are both looking to unlock their own level 5 skills pretty soon. If Selena lunges again, then Laszlo can use his bow and Selena's dual strike to kill the second ninja.
I'll play with you.
Hurry up and die. Whoa, thanks.
I'll be strong for you.
I've got your back. Guess I'll do it.
You won that round.
The automaton will attack Selena on enemy phase. It deals all of 2 damage, so it's actually a good thing that Selena got debuffed by the ninjas. Azura must escape the treasure room, but to make her turn productive, someone else, preferably Jakob, should act first.
You have my support. Oh,
We are all clear.
I'm with you.
Saizo is totally stuck. There's nothing he can do. More importantly, he's totally safe. He can't be attacked at all. The only ways he can possibly get in trouble now are for an enemy to stand right next to the exits, where he can hit them, or for us to let him out. Notice that Jakob is standing directly on top of a protrusion. If a unit is occupying one of those spaces when the Dragonbane is triggered, that unit is still allowed to move in any direction they wish. You can't go through or over a protrusion, not even if you're a flyer, but you can hop down from one.
You're lucky I'm here.
Be steadfast.
The reason why we had Mussolina first is that she is also on a protrusion. If we had used the Dragonbane beforehand, she wouldn't have been allowed to lunge the ninja. Now that Saizo has been placed in protective custody, the rest of the team needs to set up for our next engagement. While they're at it, they can play matchmaker between Azura and Jakob.
Everything will be all right.
Let me help you.
Mozu can use Kaze as a middleman to give her strongest lance to Silas, just in case he needs it.
This will be enjoyable.
Let's do this! You've got an ace in the hole!
We're almost ready to engage these Swordmasters and the Life and Death Mechanist. Shura and Baruka just have to move a little
How you
closer.
want to do this? This won't be easy.
Let's go.
How about a two-step?
I guess I owe you one.
It's Kaze's job to disarm the trap. This is also his first chance to use his newfound access to swords. Swords are worse than daggers in just about every respect, but Kaze won't be a ninja forever.
How troubling.
You have my support.
Trust me. This should help.
We can do this together.
Thanks to Jakob's attack, Silas can easily kill this Swordmaster using Kaze's Dual Strike. He no longer needs the Blessed Lance, so he can trade that back to Mozu through Kaze.
Looks like we have no choice. I won't allow it. I won't fail again.
Next, we want to weaken the second Swordmaster. Rather than having Camilla do it herself, we want her to support Baruka so that the two of them can earn the last support point they need for A rank.
I'll support you.
Camilla hasn't gained any magic at all, so she can't deal damage using her Fire Tome. We can rectify that by replacing it with the Forged Thunder.
More requests.
Laszlo's task is to separate Shura from Camilla. At this position, he can support Selena for another attack on the Swordmaster. To minimize the damage she takes, but also to avoid an accidental crit, she would like to use Camilla's Bronze Axe.
Come on!
The reason Selena is better off using an axe is that this Swordmaster wields a dual katana. The Bronze Axe saves her 8 HP compared to the Bronze Lance, and it doesn't have the Iron Axe's minute crit chance. Also because of the dual katana, Laszlo's bronze bow is just as accurate as his bronze sword.
We're not alone. Here we go.
Huh?
Champions of justice!
Percy can swoop in for the kill, but he should do that using Corrin's support. This will be the second battle the two of them will have fought together.
You'll be all right.
You've got an ace in the hole!
Percy lunges so that Effie can use his dual strike against the Mechanist.
I'm here to help.
Pretty heroic, right? We can do this together!
Because the Mechanist has life and death, Effie can one-round him easily. Percy's dual strike will take him to level 20.
I'll go with you.
Kaze's next destination is in the north, where we will soon face another wave of reinforcements.
We can take these goons!
This is the third time we've had to choose between Wyvern Lord and Malignite. With Baruka, we picked Malignite because we wanted short-term utility with tomes, and we wanted Trample. Selena was different. She's never going to reach level 15, so for her, we were most interested in raw combat power as a Wyvern Lord, with Rally Defense being a nice bonus. Percy wants Trample for sure, so it would save us money if we stuck to Malignite and didn't bother with Wyvern Lord at all. Swordbreaker, the level 15 Wyvern Lord skill, is a lot less useful. That said, Percy is much better as a Wyvern Lord. The stats are higher in every place that matters for him, the parrot bonuses are more broadly applicable, and although Percy doesn't really care about lances because he'd rather focus exclusively on his axe rank, they're definitely more relevant than tomes. Surprisingly, the biggest factor in this decision is Rally Defense. We will make several other Wyvern Lords, but Selena and Silas are not sticking around for long. They're going to retire pretty soon, so if we want to maintain access to Rally Defense more permanently, we need Percy to learn it too.
Oh!
Careful out there.
We'd like to move the Bronze Axe from Selena back to Camilla, but Camilla's going this way, and Selena is not, so someone else has to act as an intermediary for that trade.
I'll be your
Effie will
shield.
wait here so that she can fight this ninja across the wall. She'll want to use Percy's support for that.
We can do this together!
Antagonizing this group will trigger the next wave of reinforcements. Ideally, we would eliminate the whole squad before those reinforcements get to us, so we'd like to fight the 2 samurai and the swordmaster at the same time as the ninja.
Let's go.
We don't want to leave Shura totally exposed, so we'll have Azura sing to him.
I'll do what I can.
Now Azura is in danger, but we can protect her by having Keaton block the way. However, we do need to make sure that he can't get lunged out of position by the swordmaster.
We'll be just fine.
Laszlo will pull Keaton, and will also dual strike for him. His bronze sword is the best weapon for that job. Keaton equips the Beast Rune to maximize his defense stat and his damage output at the same time.
Fine.
If Selena waits here with her lance in hand, then the samurai and the swordmaster won't be able to reach Laszlo. They'll have to choose between Selena and Keaton. This is an odd-numbered turn, turn 9, so Keaton has 37 attack. As his dual striker, Laszlo will have 32 attack on enemy phase. The swordmaster has 13 defense, so Keaton hits for 37 minus 13, or 24 points of damage. Laszlo deals 32 minus 13 all over 2, rounded down, which is 9. 24 plus 9 is 33, which is 1 shy of lethal. If Keaton could deal just 1 more point of damage, then the swordmaster would be forced to attack Selena instead, since she's weaker than Keaton is. That's what we'd prefer. It just so happens that the samurai act before the swordmaster does. If Keaton were to level up from fighting them and gain strength, an 80% chance, then that would give him the 1 point he needs. And they definitely will attack Keaton. He has 24 defense, the same as Selena, but Selena has weapon triangle advantage over the samurai, and Keaton does not.
Be steadfast.
This could be tough.
This could be trouble.
I am at your service.
How shall we proceed?
Silas can finally return Camilla's bronze axe.
Champions of justice! Only one chance! Nice work!
Effie is killing it with these growths.
I won't leave. Not over here.
I was doing fine on my own.
Keaton does get strength after all.
I really don't.
I knew this would work out because I did a test run before recording to make sure I had accounted for all the necessary stat benchmarks. But if Keaton had not rolled strength at this level, we could still have achieved the same results at no extra cost. Remember that time Camilla killed a Master Ninja using Laszlo's dual strike, and I said that was the reason we gave her a strength tonic? There was 1 point of overkill, so we could equally have given it to Laszlo. That would have made all of his dual strikes 1 point stronger, and Keaton could have exploited that. Laszlo has just learned Rally's skill, which I think is badly underappreciated. It's a very useful tool on stages like this one where you're fighting a lot of speedy enemies. Even if you're just bumping accuracy from the high 80s to the low 90s, that's a significant improvement in reliability. Without it, those mischances can lead to failure pretty quickly. The final wave of reinforcements consists in the north of 3 samurai and 2 swordmasters, always a pain to deal with. In the southeast we face 2 mechanists along with their 3 puppets, which are substantially less annoying. We'll start in the north, where the closest samurai carries a dual katana and is therefore weak to axes.
This is my mission.
Baruka's Steel Axe +1 is lethal, but we'd prefer to eliminate any crit chances if possible. Unfortunately, the hand axe isn't quite strong enough for the task. Luckily, Camilla is still carrying the hand axe +1. When Baruka trades back the Fire Tome and retrieves the Forged Thunder, she can also swap hand axes.
It's my turn! Don't interfere!
With Baruka out of the way, Jakob can step in to weaken the right-hand Swordmaster. His hit rates and Silas's are less than stellar, even though Silas is using the most accurate weapon he possibly can. At this point, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. Honestly, it's probably worthwhile to bring someone with Heartseeker on this mission, even if that someone were Nyx, who would be absolutely hopeless in combat here.
On my honor as a knight. Don't take all the glory! We can do this together.
Silas will kill the left-hand samurai using Kaze support. While he's at it, he can take a moment to adjust Baruka's weapon. We shouldn't be relying on her dual strikes, but the Thunder Tome is at least reasonably accurate and capable of dealing damage.
Let's go. Watch out! I won't forget this. Show me what you've got.
Kaze does not need Baruka's help here. As you can see, that's a very good thing.
Out of my way!
Next, Camilla should kill the Swordmaster using her dual club plus Silas's dual strike. Using his current weapon, Silas can hit for 12 damage. He has 38 attack with Vow of Friendship and Elbow Room factored in, and that's up against 13 defense, a difference of 25.
Kill them?
With Camilla dealing 25 damage on her own, Silas only has to deal 9, so he can drop up to 7 attack. Another way of putting that is that Silas's displayed attack value must be at least 25. The 6 points from his skills will cover the rest. The Steel Lance's might is 10. The Brass Naginata's is 4, and that's enough. Mozu can effect the switch, and she can even pair up with Silas to make the margins that much more comfortable.
I'll take care of this.
By having Mozu change Silas's weapon, we freed Camilla to trade with Kaze instead of Silas, so now she can make Kaze equip a sword again.
Careful out there! To the rescue!
You're so cute. Oh?
We've handled the northern group without having to resort to any emergency interventions from Percy, so it's time to turn our gaze southward. Effie goes with Shura. We're looking to give her a couple more kills so that she too can reach level 20. Meanwhile, Corrin and Percy should separate in preparation for our next turn. Percy's responsibility will be carrying people from the north to the south.
It's my lucky day! Again!
For his part, Corrin will have to use one of the nearby dragon veins. The point of doing that is to open up a more direct path to the boss. most of our units will be able to go this way instead of having to run all the way around to the south. That will let Saizo out of his cage, but if we clear all the other enemies and then reach the boss fast enough, there shouldn't be a problem. Percy's current position is not actually ideal, so Azura has to sing to him. That might seem like a waste, because Percy could have just moved to the right spot in the first place, but Azura needs to be up here anyway.
Let's end this here.
Before anyone else moves, Laszlo should rally. All by himself, he can provide 1 strength, 1 speed, and 6 hit.
Let's go.
I've got you.
This is one of 3 kills that Effie still needs to reach level 20.
Show me what you got! Well fought.
For sure to one-round these mechanists, who both have silver shurikens that don't debuff strength, he needs 35 attack.
Go, go!
Given an iron bow with a Wyvern Rider or Wyvern Lord para partner, and fancy footwork, and a strength tonic, and a 2-point strength meal, Shura reaches that benchmark exactly.
I want to see what happens.
Can we start now? Don't even think about it!
No match for me. Yep.
Fine, I'll protect you. Huh? I knew you'd need me.
Now you've done it. Respect your elders.
This is where it's nice for Bruka to have a weapon that can hit and deal damage, but thankfully her dual strike doesn't affect the outcome of this battle.
That was a good fight. Remain calm.
Strength is everything.
Laszlo still needs 1 point of bow experience to reach D rank. Effie can give that to him.
I will protect you. Good. How about a 2-step?
Thank you.
The reason why we've been so concerned about getting to D in bows isn't that we particularly care about the higher rank weapons, at least not for their own sake. Our problem is that we only have 3 bronze bows. There will be more stages like this one where we'll use more than 3 bow units, so for the sake of flexibility, it's helpful if several of them can at least use the iron, if not the killer bow.
Stay sharp.
We can milk these last 2 automata for some extra weapon experience.
I won't leave you.
Go, go! What are you looking at?
Another objective that we have not yet fulfilled is the acquisition of a second support point between Silas and Camilla. We'll maneuver them all the way down past Laszlo. Camilla can reach Percy. She has to join him, and then Percy has to drop her at the end of Baruka's movement range so that Baruka can give Silas to her.
Out of my way.
I'm here to help.
How shall we proceed?
After a song from Azura, Camilla and Silas will be able to reach their destination together.
How wonderful.
Camilla equips fire in order to reduce her damage. Silas will equip a sword. The best available is one that's currently held by Laszlo. All else being equal, Silas would rather work on his lance rank than his sword rank, but the bronze sword is more accurate than his naginata, so it's more consistent when he's dual striking against automata on the pillar tiles.
I'll protect you.
Everyone who might be impeded when we use the Dragon Vein has already moved, so Corrin can now trigger it.
I am at your service. Be steadfast. Sure, why not?
It's important to know that none of the enemies around Kotara will ever leave that room. Keaton can freely stand within their displayed attack range, as long as he doesn't actually go inside.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Together we shall prevail. This one's for you!
The second automaton didn't even bother to attack. It only has a regular saw, so it couldn't hurt either of its available targets.
We're not alone.
Let's win this one, all right? Whatever.
We can do this together!
Taking this kill, Effie will finally get to level 20.
Careful out there.
What a workout.
Right.
Camilla can attack this automaton one more time to earn that second support point with Silas.
I have faith in you. It's not over yet! Please, accept my help.
Fine.
Now we can breathe easy. Yes.
Shura gives Selena 9 movement, allowing her to reach the second treasure chest, which contains a Master Seal. On our next turn, since Selena gives a movement boost of her own to Shura, the two of them will be able to run back between Silas and Camilla. There, they'll be able to transfer and pair up, and head north very quickly. Let's consider that Master Seal we just got. Before we beat Chapter 20, we can only get 13 of them. Conquest has 17 first-generation units who start unpromoted, and we recruited Percy before the point where children come with their own promotion items. 5 units will have to wait to promote until after we can build the Tier 3 shops. Effie will be one of them, so she's going back to the bench for a while. When Silas rides north, he'll be able to reach the pillars south of Kaze. Baruka will wait nearby to take Silas's passenger.
Our prey.
Camilla will have 9 movement too. Because she flies, she gets to use all of it.
Allow me to join you.
You have my support.
This will be enjoyable.
I want to see what happens.
Mozu drops Keaton to the left so that he can receive whoever's riding with Camilla.
You're lucky I'm here.
Percy wants Camilla's bronze axe, which is stronger than his. From here, he can carry Effie.
Leave this to me.
This could be trouble.
You're hopeless without me.
Is there a plan?
No need to worry.
On guard!
Neither Silas nor Laszlo require the Bronze Sword +1 any longer. Kaze can still make use of it.
How shall we proceed?
Let's do this! You've got an ace in the hole!
Effie doesn't need a weapon at all. We'll trade the Bronze Bow +2 over to Shura.
I'll protect you.
Mozu can just use one of the weaker bronze bows.
Leave it to me. I won't let you down.
We've arranged almost everyone in an echelon formation. The point of that is to put them all near a central square where Laszlo can rally. Saizo will run next to that square, but he won't block it.
This will be enjoyable. I will protect you.
In this game, your rallies do not affect green units. That doesn't matter here because we won't let Saizo fight anyone, but it's worth remembering because there are other places where you might be tempted to try it.
Quickly now.
It'll be a lot easier to fight these enemies if we clear the caltrops first. We'd also like to lunge some of them off their pillar tiles. Not only will that take away their terrain bonuses, it will also get our lungers out of the way of our final attacks on the boss.
I'm with you.
This could be trouble. Not to worry.
Now Camilla can use Kaze's dual strike. Kaze will have to move no matter what, so Azura will have to sing to him at some point.
Be careful.
To improve the accuracy of his dual strike, she should do that before Camilla attacks.
This could be trouble.
Everything will be all right. If I may.
Notice that Camilla wounded Kotaro using Savage Blow. The idea of using that to weaken troublesome bosses without having to pass any accuracy checks is going to come back in a big way later on. Selena will lunge the Swordmaster back the other way. She'll end up adjacent to Kotaro. The important tiles to keep clear are the ones 2 spaces away from him, the ones that our bow users can attack them from. By being adjacent to those positions, Selena will give those units 4 extra points of hit.
I'm with you. Looks like we have no
Thanks to
choice.
supportive, Kaze's accuracy against this Master Ninja is pretty good even when using a sword. That's what we'd prefer to use, so let's try it.
I'm here to help.
This is
Baruka
mine.
can kill the ninja using Kaze's dual strike. Supportive doesn't take effect in this situation, since Korn isn't directly acting as the support unit in battle here, so we're much better off making Kaze equip a dagger again.
I'm with you. I'm here for you.
That one was mine. I won't let you die.
When Mozu attacks from this position, her 3 adjacent allies give 12 extra hit. That's nowhere near enough to make her accurate. Kotaro is disgustingly hard to hit. This is another place where Heartseeker would be extremely valuable. You can try using Freeze, but that's not very reliable because Kotaro has a ton of staff avoid, and status staffs are affected by terrain bonuses. So Mozu's just going to try her best.
We can do this together!
I've got you.
With Keaton's support, Shura can one-round Kotaro from full HP if he has to. But before he tries that, we can have Azura sing to him to give him 6 more hit.
How you want to do this? Everything will be fine. Stiff upper lip.
We can take these goons!
I'll do what I can. Here I come!
Golly, thanks a bunch!
In his supports with Korn, Shura tells of his homeland, a mountainous country called Kohga that he describes as an earthly paradise. It was destroyed long ago by the forces of Mokushu. Conquest is the only route where Shura gets a chance to exact his revenge.
Really? Oh! Yeah. Yes.
Hey Shura, psst, that was great, but next time I have an even better line for you. Hello, my name is Shura of Kohga. You killed my country. Prepare to die. That was a very long ordeal, but it all paid off in sweet revenge. And not just for Shura.
That's it.
Saizo. Indeed.
Are you all right?
I'm in your debt.
No. Hey.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Well?
Next time, we head back to our castle to regroup and rearm before we advance from our new beachhead in Mokushu. But the astral plane holds new and very frightening dangers. I'll see you there.